This is Jeremy Dennis. Thanks for joining us for the Moss House podcast. Today we're joined by Yooyeon Nam, who is a Korean-born, New York-based oil painter whose work explores alienation, cultural displacement, and the strange and often unsettling nature of existence. She earned her BFA in painting from Pratt Institute in 2023, graduating with highest honors. Yooyeon is known for her distinctive round-faced, noseless figures, childlike characters with downcast, pupil-less eyes. These figures inhabit dreamlike environments, rendered in bold, often dark color palettes. Yooyeon is influenced by Korean Buddhist sculpture, existential philosophy, post-impressionistic colorists such as Henry Matisse, and Yooyeon builds surrealist scenes that feel both playful and disturbing. Her paintings explore what it means to feel like an outsider, between cultures, between people, and even within one's life. Through color, symbolism, and theatrical compositions, she invites viewers to confront discomfort, vulnerability, and the paradox of being both deeply lonely and radically free.
Thank you for inviting me to this podcast.
I wanted to ask, since everyone's listening on audio, hopefully people will be able to look up your work on Instagram, but can you describe your paintings to people who sometimes haven't seen them before?
The first thing that I can say about my work is I'm a maximalist, and there are like so many things happening in my painting, and even every corner is like filled in. Even though it's just a background, there are like a lot of mark makings and small things going on. I do that to entertain people. A lot of people say that art should not be an entertainment, but at the same time, I feel like they should be attractive enough to capture one's eyes. So I want to hide some secrets for people who would look at them for a really long time. So that's the reason that I go on to that maximalist style. And my characters, I love making human faces, human figures. And I made up these characters because if I have a specific model for my own paintings, I found out that it's hard to sympathize with them. So I made up a general character that anyone could really put themselves into the characters. And yeah, they look weird, not really like humans, but also like humans. So I explain that they are like in between human and non-humans.
You mentioned that you like to hide secrets in compositions. It's so content rich, so much detail. But is that secret that you add, is it sort of formulaic, or is it always the same thing, or is it always different depending on your idea?
I think it's always different because every painting have different things in their lives, and I don't really do repeated themes in my paintings. So every time I try to make new things with the paintings, so a lot of the time the secrets are different.
And you mentioned that it's important for you to invent your own figures rather than paint like photorealistic portraits. Can you talk a little bit about how you came upon that concept of inventing your own style of people?
I just had to do a lot of drawings for my etching class, and the professor wanted me to do 20 drawings a week, but really a good drawing. So I loved human figures, and every time I did some drawings, I wanted to have a model, like real model, but that was impossible. How can I have 20 friends just modeling for me like the whole day? So I tried to make fast figures, fast drawings, fast figures, and I could see that I felt comfortable with some anonymous faces. They looked like me a little bit. So when I don't have real models, I just modeled myself and felt comfortable with these invented characters and wanted to have like different variations of this weird face. They have like round faces, weird eyes without eyebrows, without noses. Their lips are actually in the position of the noses. So for some variations, I give them some noses sometimes. Sometimes they have pupils, sometimes they don't.
And just a quick follow-up, how does it feel? I know that the figures in the work are mostly invented, but sometimes based on self-portraiture, how does it feel to see yourself in?
I think it's better to have my faces in these anonymous faces than to see a little bit of myself in someone else's portrait.
I mentioned in your intro that you're influenced by Korean Buddhist sculpture. I wonder, for myself included, how is it influencing your paintings?
It was just a show at a National Korean Museum, and yeah, it also have some art. So in this show there was just a really huge dark room, and there are only 2 Buddhist sculptures in the whole space, and light was on 2 of those Buddhist sculptures, and that was my first time to think that a sculpture is alive, an artwork is alive. And I was really impressed that they really look like humans. It felt like they would just stand up in a second, but at the same time, their anatomy was not like real humans, which makes them look divine. So I really love to see that line between like humans and divine things, and I wanted to incorporate that in my paintings. I love films, but I think people still love paintings because they can see something that films and photos cannot capture.
And speaking of the way that you paint and what you can see immediately, sometimes the figures in your paintings are sometimes like cute or innocent, and yet at the same time they might be like suffering, feeling emotional pain. I wonder if you could talk about that intention, or the maybe the tension between those 2 extremes.
I think I only paint about pain and negative things because so many positive things I can just enjoy it at that moment and share it with my friends, my family, and they evaporate really fast. That's a good thing too. I can just enjoy the moment, but negative things, it's really hard to get rid of them. And even though we have some good moments, some bad things just linger in our lives, and I wanted to get rid of them a little bit through paintings. And I found myself that if I think about something for a really long time, sometimes it just goes away. So for me, those are in my paintings a lot of pain. They like the characters going crazy, going violent. But if there's only pain in the paintings, it's really hard to look at because everybody's life is already in pain. So I wanted to incorporate something that's like more positive and attractive to look at.
Definitely makes sense.
So that's the reason I wanted to incorporate like some cute things, adorable things. And it's easier for me to paint them too, because if it's just all like painful things, I would be more depressed than right now.
I notice sometimes in your paintings you have these 2 different directions. Sometimes it's like a violent physical pain, and other times it's like someone who's kind of shy or pushed into the background, just like sad on their face. Do you feel like both of these angles have to be explored, or are you heading more in one direction?
I actually didn't know that, and now I think of my paintings, yeah, I definitely have those 2 moments at the same time. And I don't think they are like really separate to each other. I'm a shy person, but in my mind, I can imagine something really violent too. So it's just something, what's that? 2 sides of one thing.
Going even more into the figures that you paint and the distinct style, I'm sure you're asked all the time what the meaning behind the missing nose is and what does that absence symbolize?
There are 2 versions of the explanation. The funny version is that I have nose problems. During winter, it's so hard to breathe with my nose and always have like runny noses. I wanted people to wonder how they're breathing in that environment. Usually we don't really feel we're suffocated in some moments that we feel shy or we feel alienated. But when I look into my past and think about those moments, actually that was like suffocation. Like I don't know how to accept it, or I don't know how to survive that environment.
I wanted to ask, when you first moved to New York a couple of years ago, it seems like the eyes in your paintings, there's a very piercing eye contact, and I wonder what that emotion expresses for you and whether you see a difference between like eye contact in New York, which is often non-existent, and I've never been to Korea, but how that might have influenced the work as well.
In the beginning of my paintings, the figures, like these character figures, didn't really have pupils. And one of the reasons is because in Korea, it's not considered polite to look into others' eyes when they meet each other for the first time. So we just look at their noses because it looks like I'm looking into their eyes, but at the same time, the other person would know that I'm not really looking into their eye. I didn't really think that's impolite, but I couldn't really look back at them. Like, it was just like really uncomfortable for me, and I guess that's the reason there are more pupils in my characters. Like, people on the street, they just look into my eyes and say hi. I'm like, okay, do I know that person?
Oh, it must be so strange. You often speak about existential themes within your work, the way that you think. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about feelings of being an outsider both in Korea and the US, and how that influences your work, whether it's the creation of it, what you want to communicate, why you do art. If you could talk about existentialism and maybe even loneliness.
I think that everything is a incident, like accident or luck. When I studied history, it feels like, what if I were born in that period of time? And even back in Korea, I thought that I had some luck to born in this time without wars in Korea. And when I came to United States, I saw like a variety of people, like really different lifestyle, and they're from so many other places. And that's the time I thought more about the incident of being born in some period of time, in some families, with a specific like surroundings, environment. And I thought that, okay, maybe nothing really have any meaning. And I think that thought was always with me. And I always thought about that. Like, maybe there's no meaning in our lives. But at the same time, that is a kind of a freedom. I'm not supposed to do anything for some meaning in my life. So I thought that maybe I can just create my own way of doing something. And when I decided to study art, I just really wanted to try that. And I thought that I will really regret not trying it if I don't try it. And I don't want to have that regret before I die. Mm-hmm. I think that's the main reason that I came here. We just have to make it. And I think one of my style of doing it is to create my own thing. I always loved painting, so that's the reason I paint.
Art definitely gives people meaning in life, but do you feel like each painting being unique and creating your own style gives meaning to life, and kind of part of that meaning is the archiving of art, giving it for future generations and being part of that larger cultural contribution?
I personally think that I just like that action of painting, and I just feel like I will be honored if my works will be archived, and if they are not after I'm dead, it's fine.
Okay.
But I don't want to be obsessed with my works being archived or collected or be preserved forever.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, just in your lifetime, were there specific things in history or maybe personal things that you can share that informed the work?
I think the reason I'm really obsessed with paintings and drawings was because time back in my high school, I went to a foreign language high school, which is pretty a private, good high school. But all of my friends, like classmates, were like so competitive. And I still remember that moment. Like after an exam, I asked my friends if we want to go to an amusement park or hang out. And everybody said no. And they told me that they don't hang out. I thought that's one of the most awkward time to ask a friend to hang out and get rejected. And I wanted to do something that I can focus on by myself, not with others. And when I came here, I found out that it's like really different to hang out with people. Like I thought that we are really close, and I thought that maybe we can hang out for some time, and actually that's not a really close relationship. It was more of being polite, like being friendly to other people or being polite to other people. So it was a hard thing for me to, it's not like measuring, like figuring out how close we are. And I think when I came here, that kind of thing was a really big deal in my life. And I think that's reflected on my first series.
I've really only known you for a week and a half, but you were describing at other artist residencies that whenever artists like would explore the town or go shopping or some other art and culture thing, they'd always want to tag along. So it sounds very similar to high school, but why is it that you're so willing to like jump out of the studio and go out and explore and socialize?
So I'm a really introverted person, and it's really hard for me to start a conversation in like openings or other just random events in the city. I know that there are like so many opportunities to do that, but most of the time I just look at the work and just stand by the artists and listen to them, and then couldn't really have any courage or bravery to talk to them. And when I experienced some residencies, I found out that we will be there for at least a week, and I have more time to socialize with them. And usually all of the artists want to talk to other artists, and I think I want to use that time to socialize a lot, because it's so hard for me to socialize in 5 minutes. I think like a week or 2 weeks and maybe a month is much easier.
I want to go back to your painting, and during your time here at Moss House, you've been painting almost every day new works. You describe yourself as a colorist painter. It seems like you pay a lot of attention to having a very broad range of colors in each of your paintings. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what is that style of color and paint that you're trying to achieve when you don't have access to everything that you might need in terms of palette. Is there like an ideal like color range in your work?
I usually have just one color in mind when I start painting, and I just color that section with that color and then try to find other colors that would go well with that color. So it's more of an improvisation, not like a really planned thing to do. And I think it's fun to have as many colors as possible. Like we're looking into the nature, and I find out that even there's one object, one thing, there are like so many colors in there. And I want to capture all the things. But at the same time, I know that like in the paintings, I cannot have the rainbow, like so many rainbow colors as we look at things around us. And I want to choose the exact color that can. So that's the reason I try to experiment with more colors. Like what if I color this shadow with red? If that makes sense, I would like to just have red shadow, even though it's like impossible to have in the nature.
Talking about your process and how you create your work with your imagination. So how do you decide upon what versus your actual composition?
I use my environments or surroundings to be elements in my paintings, but I guess the theme is usually my feelings. So I think I should share my thoughts or feelings that I felt here. I'm not a historian, so I don't really know everything about it, but I felt like something is lost here historically, and I could feel it. Not really from like person to person, but like the whole area just makes me feel not really about sadness. It's more about like having lost something and cannot recover it like right now. So I feel like I felt that feeling, and want to reflect that in my paintings. And I found myself that I want to incorporate some animal body parts in the paintings that I started here. So I feel like if there are like some animals, I think that humans are eating up their territories and not really harming them, but their lives have been changed because of humans. So I think that's similar to like how animals are losing their past, and I feel it's similar to the loss that this nation experienced historically.
Oh, definitely. Eastern Long Island is interesting because a lot of it's so developed, but here at Shinnecock, there's like a nature preserve, especially near Ma's house, so you probably see a lot of turkey and deer all the time. Maybe we could talk a little bit about your time at Ma's house. You've agreed to work in acrylic versus your typical paint because we have no ventilation, but from the works that you've created, it seems like you've mastered acrylic pretty quickly. Did you have any like revelations or like breakthroughs, or did you just adapt to it very quickly?
I used acrylic like 7 to 8 years ago. I used it to prepare my portfolio for the school. And in my freshman year, we were just required to use acrylics. And the only reason that I just didn't use it for a while is it dries really fast, and also it has that kind of plasticky feeling to it. I just didn't like it that much compared to oil paints. And now I think I figured it out how to make it less dull with acrylics. And I don't know why, but I feel like the paintings themselves are changing because of the medium. It's because of the colors that it's different from oil colors. And there are some materials here, and I could just experiment with mixing, have more colors here, so I could paint different things here.
You've been enjoying the paintings that you've been doing, and did you say it's been about 3 months since you've been kind of like in the studio painting, since you've been in Brooklyn, or how long has it been since you've been doing your regular art practice?
Like including the school time or after the school time?
Oh yeah, just before Ma's house, have you been regularly in the studio?
My schedule just changes according to my other schedules. And when I was back in the city, like last year, I could go to a studio residency. It's called Enclave Artist Residency. So I just spent a lot of time there because it gave me a really huge studio. And I almost went there like every day to do like huge paintings. And after I came back to my home, I had to prepare my solo show. So I just finished up all the paintings there in my home studio. Almost everything that can make the floors dirty was already done in the residency, so I could just finish up the small details at home. And now I'm here, and I actually really like the new ideas that I got here with acrylics, and I think I'll incorporate more acrylic paintings and some inspirations that I got here.
For some of the other artists who are listening, did you say that you don't really have a sketchbook of ideas that you're going to do every day? Is it more just like you wake up and then it comes to you?
But sometimes I just don't like the drawings. I just leave them there. Or sometimes I just want to have so many ideas. And sometimes if I don't have any new drawings to make them into paintings, I look back into my sketchbooks to see my past ideas.
So do you create 3 or more sketches before you commit to the actual paint? And then what is that process like? Do you pin them on the wall and then decide which looks most appealing?
There are some paintings that don't really need any dynamics more, but sometimes if I'm not satisfied with the first drawing, I just try to think it as a kind of a film scene, so that I'm a director. I can just move the camera as if I'm a movie director and see how this scene could be look different in other angles. So I try to have other angles, and while I'm drawing, because I'm on the other angle, the environment kind of changes and I invent the new environments. And if I'm not satisfied, I try one more thing to do. Yeah, so it's progressed that way. And most of the times, I'm satisfied with one of the 3 drawings. If I'm not satisfied, I just move on to another sketch.
I did want to go back to your kind of origin story, since you trained originally to pursue business. I think that's one issue that a lot of artists have, like self-promotion and selling work. Has that helped you navigate the art world? Or I know that 2026, the art world's in chaos and no one's selling, it feels like. But before that, perhaps.
I think the reason I changed my major is because I'm not really good at business.
Okay.
The main reason I went to business school is because I thought that I can maybe apply it to anything. Painting, you need promotion. Anything needs a business mind. And when I studied business, I found out that it's to look into everything in customer's mind, not really about the thing itself, the business itself. It is also important, but it is to provide something to customers, not really about chasing what you want to do. But I think it helped me in a way that I admit that painting is to show people. So when I was in freshman year, if some professors told us to think about the viewers looking into the paintings, at first I was like, no, the art should be artist's thing and I want to express what I want to do. But it just didn't take me much time to admit that it's also to show people and make the viewers feel the same thing as I felt. I think that helped me a lot. And most importantly, during pandemic, I had to go back to Korea, and I used my business degree to find a job that actually pays me.
That's great.
I don't think that I'll be a really good investor, but yeah, it's helping me to see the world, what's happening outside of the art world, and it's to just look around what's happening in the world, not really just submerged in my own work. So I think it's balancing me really well.
I would say in my own art and for Ma's house, having your work sell isn't the most important thing that gives it value. And since you're always thinking about meaning in life and also you have that business background, I wonder, since you've just had your solo show recently, was the number one thing that you were thinking about in terms of self-promotion?
I think at this stage, I just want to have a kind of a solid connection with other artists and possibly some gallery people. Yeah, I think that was the first thing, but also about how it looks to other people, like how my solo show looks to other people, like how many people were there. I found out that's pretty important. I was really happy to have a show, and I felt proud of myself looking at the paintings on the walls. It's so different from my studio. It looks better on the gallery walls, but it was more about like having friends there and celebrating together, since I'll go to their shows too.
One other thing that you mentioned in the past is that maybe it's related to art or openings or business, but you talked about self-esteem and politeness as essential qualities. Is this something that you practice all the time, or is it something that you're developing in terms of going to openings and how artists should present and carry themselves? Or
I don't know when I said these things.
I'm going like deep in the archives.
I think that's not only about art openings or like promotions. I think it's required as a human being and in relationships. Even though I might make some mistakes, but if I have the basic politeness, maybe the other person would know that this person is just from other culture and not really used to the politeness here. So I think that's really important, and also to have like self-esteem, because it's presenting myself too, like just as a human, not really as an artist. I think these are just really basic things, and I try to be polite to other people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because I don't want to harm them in any way. Yeah, I think that those are just basic things as humans.
That's wonderful. Going back to your paintings and that response, oftentimes you have individuals in the paintings. Other times you do have two people at once, and they're often interacting with each other, but it's more of a maybe a symbolic or allegorical connection. I wonder if in the future of your art, do you ever think about maybe depicting like that high school traumatic experience as process, or being here at Shinnecock and detecting that trauma? What do you feel about like that allegorical representation versus more specific references?
During my kidnapped series that I made mainly in 2023, there are like a lot of interactions, a lot of violence in there. I think I already overcame that trauma. I didn't really think that it's trauma, but it might be a trauma. And some incidents that people might want to fight, I think those are back in 2023. And now I'm feeling that there might be not as many opportunities left for me to have like really caring people, like really important people in my life than in high school. Obviously, I'm older than that. I think the new series with two figures would more focus on how caring people or how much care people have in their relationships rather than fighting. Every time I go back to Korea, I see my parents are getting older. And at some point, they're like physically be someone that I should care about. Like physically going to hospitals, maybe going to like other places that they can have a better life. So I think caring also have that moments of being burdened to each other. So my violence will more focus on that part.
I know, I understand what you're saying, and it's
yeah.
And then totally non-art related, but since you're working with your personal dynamics, and do you have something like totally unrelated to your art and painting practice that is like the relief, like going to nature or movies or anything like that helps process?
I really love to go to concerts back in Korea, but I stopped doing that here because there are like too many things going on concerts here. Like people drink beers, and in Korea that wasn't a common thing. So I stopped it, and sometimes I really miss going to concerts. I watched the concert videos through YouTube, like the past ones, like old ones. And I love watching movies too. Usually some violent ones. Not visually, but conceptually they're like violent.
And do you have any like from recent publication or ones that people would know? Any titles of movies that you've seen recently that people should see that might inform your work?
I don't think his films are related to my works, but I just like his works. The film director's name is Chanuk Park. So I recently watched No Other Choice. I really wanted to watch it on the screen, like big screen with the sounds.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for that one. I didn't see it yet, but I could see the connection about like business and violence and
I think he's a humorous person, and the director loves humans in a weird way.
Definitely. And besides continuing your current series, do you have any previews of other themes that you're thinking about exploring? Do you feel like you're going to branch out in the next 5 years into a whole different direction?
In every sketches, I don't really plan out anything. I just draw things and then make it into an idea. I think now I'm really interested in something that cannot be recovered. It can be recovered in another way, but we cannot go back to a past and then fully recover the same thing. I think it's also related to the world right now. It's so different. AI is there. I personally use it to translate things and to proofread my English writings. And everything feels like it's not recoverable at some point.
Maybe my last question for now, unless there's anything else that you wanted to go back and add, is whether or not there's anything you want to highlight coming up this year for your art, or if you want to shout out any platforms that people should follow your work on.
I think the biggest thing that happened to me this year is Ma's House. There are some interviews on Vibes and Vistas magazine. It's a pretty deep interview about my life in New York and also my painting practices.
Did you want to shout out your website or Instagram or anything?
Oh, you can just Google Yooyeon and Nam, like name without E.
Yooyeon, thanks so much for participating in both the Ma's House residency and podcast.
And thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast. It always has been my dream to do a podcast.
That's great. Well,
yeah.
Thanks for everyone for listening. Bye now.
Thank you.